in the bill to the House.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Mika Whaitiri.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. Greetings to fellow members of the House. E te iwi o Rangitāne ki Wairarapa, Tāmaki nui-ā-Rua, tēnā tātou katoa. Mr Speaker, I want to apologise that I had to abruptly end my last speech. And that's what you get when you sit in the House for, 6 hours before you get a call on these treaty bills. So I do apologise, and I do want to acknowledge Daniel and all the negotiators of Rangitāne o Manawatu for a fabulous job. Sir, it is the first reading of the Rangitāne Tūmaira Wairarapa Tāmaki nui-ā-Rua bill, and no doubt support it entirely, that we help facilitate it off to the Māori Affairs Select Committee so we can have the bill back, so we get into the second reading and then third reading, so we can ensure that the people, the iwi here, can get on with their affairs. But sir, can I just please acknowledge all those that have come down here that are in the gallery. You've made mention, the Honourable Minister for Treaty Negotiators of Manahi Pāwai. I see Jim Rimene, and of course Mavis and Koro Mullins, ngā mihi kia koutou katoa, te whānau kua tai mai. Sir, Rangitāne traced their descent from the explorers of Kupe and Whātonga, rangatira of the mighty waka of Kurahaupo, and the grandfather of the eponymous ancestor Rangitāne. The traditions record that for centuries the Rangitāne people settled in Wairarapa and Tāmaki nui-ā-Rua before 1840, and they have a special association with many places, including the Wairarapa Lakes, Eastern Coast, and Te Tāpiri Nui o Whātonga, known by others as 70-mile bush. Sir, this bill acknowledges the grievances of the Rangitāne people, including the Crown's acquisition of vast areas of land and its failure to properly survey or protect from alienation a number of reserves. The Crown's failure to protect Rangitāne from virtual landlessness and from the disintegration of their tribal structures, the social deprivation that resulted, and of course the loss of te reo Māori. Sir, I want to take the time, hopefully stay within my 10 minutes, to acknowledge that this bill has 3 parts, and the Minister has outlined, of course, the important critical part is the historic account and the apology, which forms part 1. And of course we go into the cultural address, and the Minister touched on the protocols, the statutory acknowledgements and the deed of recognition, the Manawatu River Catchment Advisory Board, some classification, changes of geographical names, some vesting of cultural redress properties, and of course vesting and gifting back of properties. Part 3, we talk about commercial redress, and I want to acknowledge the transfer of commercial redress properties and deferred selection properties, some licensed land, access to protected sites, and of course a topic of debate that has been swirling around this House for this week and weeks to come is the right of first refusal over right of first refusal land. And just to say to members of this House, the right of first refusal and land taken under the Public Works Act for many iwi that haven't settled, or in the case of this particular iwi who are in the process of getting legislation through, those mechanisms of reclaiming land is so critical. It is so critical because we have lost so much. We have lost so much. And the ability to ensure that land that was taken under the Public Works Act is no longer needed for the reason in which it's taken, then it must be offered back, uninhibited, back to the original owners. And yet, in recent times in this House, we've passed legislation that nullifies land taken for housing purposes. We've made that call in this House. And I just wanted to go on record that this side of the House put up an SOP to protect iwi's interests for future settlements. I must acknowledge the bill, the act that we passed under urgency, so it didn't even go to Select Committee, acknowledges existing treaty settlements, but for all the rest of us that haven't got to the starting block, you've missed out through this Act in Parliament. And so it is very dear to me that every inch of land that is geared towards treaty settlement, us as parliamentarians must think twice before we move legislation that removes that ability for iwi to get back land that is so critical to them. And so I want to acknowledge that. And so in reference to the in part 3 of the right of first refusal, we do hope that when we scrutinise it in the Māori Affairs Select Committee, I understand they've been briefed by officials on what actually right of first refusal means, and so maybe that will come up in their deliberations. But Sir, yes, I will be on time. I want to acknowledge the hard work of all the negotiators. As a former treaty negotiator myself on my father's iwi of rongowhakata, the sacrifice that you put into treaty claims are unmeasurable. The sacrifice you have to make in terms of where you are yourself, on your family, and you never ever please everybody in the iwi. You never ever please everybody in the iwi, but you're driven to get the absolute best deal, and I have no doubt your negotiators have achieved that. They've achieved that on behalf of your iwi members, the best possible deal with the resources and the timing that you have available. So I want to acknowledge you all for the hard work, the perseverance, the compromises, the ear-ringing, the backstabbing that would have happened to us all. I just want to acknowledge that, and I want to thank you on behalf of Rangitāne. I also want to acknowledge the officials that support the Honourable Minister for Treaty Settlements, Chris Finlinson. I know his heart is in the right place when he moves to settle treaty settlements, and so I want to acknowledge and thank the Minister and all those officials that support him. And sometimes we disagree, but I definitely know that the Honourable Minister is committed to ensuring that we have not just expedient and quick settlements, but they are fair. But having said that, Sir, we also have a responsibility in this House that when we are passing legislation that cut across not just existing treaty settlements, but potentially future treaty settlements, that we need to pause. We need to pause, and that is where I believe our honouring the treaty, actually, the rubber hits the road. That when we are considering legislation that's going to alienate Māori from whenua, then we need to be very, very careful, because our people have lost too much already. And I don't want to be part of a parliament that just, we've done that treaty settlement, let's carry on. Everything we do in this House interrelates. And as I reflect in Rangitāne's own historical count, they gave land, they sold land in the hope that they will get the benefits in return. And the benefits around health, education and their reo maintain was never ever met by the Crown. And so that's why I make this point, Sir, that incumbent on everybody in this House, when passing legislation that's going to impact on iwi rights going forward, then all I say is be very considered, kick it back to the Select Committee process and allow iwi to have their say. Kia ora tātou.